Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the last session of the Info Day for the Research Infrastructure's new call for proposals that are going to open on the 6th of December. I am Laura Apostol, Head of Sector within the Research Executive Agency, and I will be moderating this last session of the Info Day. Research Executive Agency is the European body that deals with the implementation of the policies, the work program you have heard in the first part of the day. And this session will address the submission and evaluation of your proposals, will address a bit the management of the call. You will see a bit more about the agenda of the call. And we will talk also about the lump sum you did hear in the first part of the session of the info day, that we are having proposals that will be funded through lump sum. Since we do have a lot of questions about that, I'm going to have a colleague, Andrea from RTD, which will give you the last presentation about the lump sum. For the first part, regarding the submission and evaluation of your proposal, including the management of the call, my colleague Cristiana Grosaru from the Research Executive Agency will be here, and she will present these 2 points in the agenda. In the end, we're going to have a question and answer session, and we'll take all your questions and we're going to reply to them by the 2 o'clock when our session will finish. Okay, now I hope you know what is about this session, and I will give the floor to Cristiana. Okay, she's here. Please.
Thank you, Laura. My presentation will consist of 2 parts. One dedicated to the submission evaluation and cross-cutting issue, and the second will be dedicated to the management of the calls with a focus on the evaluation planning and some specificities of the calls. I will start with the first part and with some general key elements. So first of all, the proposed work must be within the scope of a work program topic. So please read carefully the work program and keep close to topic objectives and indicated budget. Secondly, please use guidance available in the proposal template and in the call page in the funding and tenders portal. And for support, contact your NCPs, research inquiry services, and IT help desk. Use the templates, fill out tables as required, follow instructions in the submission page. Please read the yellow warnings. They may not prevent submission, but they might highlight critical aspects. Also important to respect the page limit as it is mentioned in the proposal template, because excessive pages will be blocked by the system and they will not be evaluated. And you can resubmit your proposal as many times as you wish up until the deadline, but please plan a final submission 48 hours before deadline to avoid congestion and errors. Next slide, please. The application form keeps the same structure as up till now, with 2 parts. Part A, which is generated by the IT system and is based on the information filled in by the participants on the funding and tenders portal. And part B, which is a narrative part that includes 3 sections dedicated to the evaluation criteria. Part B needs to be uploaded as a PDF document using the templates available in the submission system. Next slide, please. There are a few new features in the Horizon Europe proposal. New fields in Part A. The researchers table that is needed to follow up researchers' careers, being a Horizon Europe indicator, role of participating organization, and self-declaration on gender equality plan. Then fields moved from Part B to Part A. such as ethics self-assessment, the security questionnaire, which is new in all Horizon Europe proposals, and information on participants' previous activities related to the call, and new parts in Part B, such as glossary of terms, consistency on the use of terminology is used in all project phases, and extensive explanations on what exactly should be included in each section. Next slide, please. Regarding the evaluation criteria, we have the same criteria as in Horizon 2020, excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. A few changes following the lessons learned. The number of aspects to be taken into account have been reduced, ensuring that the same aspect is not assessed twice. Open science practices are assessed as part of the scientific methodology and the excellence under the excellence criterion. And we will talk further about open science in the following slide. New approach to impact, the key impact pathways, and I will come back with more information regarding this as well. The assessment of the quality of applicants is assessed under quality and efficiency of the implementation rather than as a separate assessment of operational capacity, and assessment of management structures has been removed. Next slide, please. Open science. Open science is an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tools as early and as widely as possible in the process, including active engagement of society. Now, in Horizon Europe, open science practices are mandatory practices required by the calls of proposals or by the work program. They are assessed under the excellence criterion. And here we have some example of open science mandatory practices. Mandatory immediate open access to publications when beneficiaries must retain sufficient IPRs to comply with open access requirements, and the mandatory data management plan for fair research data. Next slide, please. Another important aspect, gender dimension. Addressing the gender dimension in research and innovation entails taking into account sex and gender in the whole research and innovation process. And the integration of the gender dimension into research and innovation content is mandatory unless it is explicitly mentioned in the topic description. Next slide, please. Another important aspect is describing the impact of your proposal by thinking about the specific contribution the project can make to the expected outcomes and impacts set out in the work program. This is assessed under the impact criterion, and here you have an example of how and to look about the specific contribution the project can make to the expected outcomes and impacts. Next slide, please. Linked to this, measures to maximize the impact, we have the dissemination, exploitation, and communication draft plan that needs to be included in the proposal as an admissibility condition, unless the work program topic explicitly states otherwise. All measures included here should be proportional to the scale of the project, and it should contain concrete actions to be implemented both during and after the end of the project. Next slide, please. Here we come to artificial intelligence. Due diligence is required regarding the trustworthiness of all artificial intelligence-based systems techniques used or developed in projects funded under Horizon Europe. So if activities in your proposal involve the use and or development of artificial intelligence based systems, then the technical robustness of them will be evaluated under the excellence criterion. Technical robustness referring to the technical aspects of artificial intelligence systems and development, including resilience to attack and security, fallback plan and general safety, accuracy, reliability, and reproducibility. Next slide, please. Ethics review. For all activities funded, ethics is an integral part of research from beginning to end, and ethical compliance is essential to achieve real research excellence. An ethics review process is carried out systematically in all Horizon Europe proposals based on a self-assessment included in the proposal. Ethical research conduct implies the application of fundamental ethical principles and legislation in all possible domains of research, and this includes the adherence to the highest standards of research integrity, as it is described in the European Code of Conduct for Research Integrity. Next slide. And here we reach to security scrutiny, which is new in Horizon Europe. Security issues will be checked systematically in all Horizon Europe proposals. And the checks are based on a self-assessment included in the proposal with a focus on whether the proposal uses or generates EU classified information, potential of misuse of results that could be channeled into crime or terrorism, whether activities involve information or material subject to national security restrictions. The checks that are made based on the self-assessment may trigger an in-depth security scrutiny. And with this, I reach to the end of the first part of my presentation. And if we can have the next slide, I can move to my second part. And we can present here some information regarding the management of the research infrastructure's calls. I will start with the evaluation planning. Regarding the submission of proposals, we have the period covering 6 December 2023, 12 March 2024. Evaluation of proposal will take place from 13 of March until 14 June 2024. Results of the evaluation will be announced to program committee and applicants in July 2024, and grants to be signed 12 November 2024. Next slide, please. And here we can move to the specificities of the calls. As mentioned a bit earlier, it's important to respect the page limit. As you can see here, we have page limits, specific page limits for the types of actions. It's important to respect them because excessive pages will be blocked by the system and they cannot be evaluated. We'll go further with the specificities. Please, the next slide. Here we have the eligibility specificities. So we have additional eligibility criteria for some topics, and I'll repeat a bit some information that has been presented already today during the meeting. For example, for Dev 0103, the consortium must include at least one S3 or ERIC, while for Tech 0101, at least 3 different research infrastructures, and for Tech 0102, at least 2 different research infrastructures, these being S3, ERICs, or another research infrastructure that is an intergovernmental organization of European interest. For Dev 0102, we have an additional eligibility criteria where the consortium must include as beneficiaries or as associated partners at least 2 legal entities established in 2 different African Union member states. Another important aspect, gender equality plan, which is an eligibility criterion and mandatory for public bodies, research organizations, and higher education institutions established in member states or associated countries. This is self-declared at proposal level. Nevertheless, here it's important to underline that if a consortium partner in a successful proposal does not comply with the JEP eligibility criterion requirements at the grant agreement preparation level, they cannot participate in the proposal and they will be excluded. Next slide, please. We'll continue with the specificities. Here we have an additional evaluation criteria, more exactly an additional sub-criterion under impact for the EOS call, which is formulated like this: the extent to which the proposed work incorporates the necessary coordination efforts and resources with other relevant projects and the European Open Science Cloud governance structure in the context of the EOS partnership. Next slide, please. And here we have some financial specificities. For example, for DEV 0103, the funding rate is 80% of the eligible costs in order to prove the endorsement by the research infrastructure funders, which should provide the remaining share of the developments covered by the grant agreements and foster their sustainability. And for EOSC 0102 and EOSC 0103, beneficiaries may provide financial support to third parties under the form of cascade funding. Next slide, please. And here we reach to an element of novelty. We have implemented a taxonomy for the research infrastructure calls. The applicant has to select minimum 3 up to maximum 5 descriptors. It is mandatory to select descriptors to proceed further with a proposal submission. And one descriptor is composed of the following: discipline, which is research infrastructures; subdiscipline, and here will be a drop-down menu to choose from 7 thematic areas, and also a tab dedicated to free keywords. Please select the descriptors that fits more closely to the activities of the proposal, and the descriptors can be across different subdisciplines. And with this, I reach to the last slide to my presentation.
Thank you so much, Christiana, for this presentation. I think we're gonna listen first to the presentation about the lump sum from my colleague from RTD. I hope she's here. And then we're gonna answer the questions that we're gonna send via Slido. Please don't forget that you have Slido for sending your questions, and we'll reply to them in the last part of the session. Yeah, so please.
Thank you. So hello, everybody. I am Andrea Kikos. I'm a policy officer at the European Commission in DG RTD, and I'm working on lump sum funding directly. I will present to you in the next minutes an overview of lump sum funding, and I will focus mostly on the aspects that you need to pay attention to when preparing a proposal for your lump sum topic. And I would like to start by explaining why we have been using more and more lump sum funding in Horizon Europe. There are 3 main reasons in no particular order presented here. So it's the financial error rate that needs to be further reduced, and we see lump sum funding as a main mechanism to achieve that, because the biggest sources of error in actual cost grants, they don't exist in lump sum grants, so the expected error for lump sums would be much lower. This is at the same time the reason why they are significantly simpler, because lump sum funding removes the obligation to report on actual costs and resources. And this is the main source of errors usually in actual cost grants, and it is also a major administrative burden both for beneficiaries and for the Commission's services. So by skipping this step, lump sum lead to a simpler grant management, and it's also easier to use for those beneficiaries that have limited experience with our program. And at the same time, we need to recognize that the traditional cost system remains rather complex because we need a lot of rules to accommodate all the different accounting practices in Europe and beyond. So this necessarily makes for an error-prone system, despite all the efforts that we made over the years to simplify it. And then last but not least, with lump sums, we would like to have a greater focus on the content. So by not having to do the financial management, The idea is that the scientific technical content will get more attention on all sides. Next slide, please. I would like to go through some very basic principles. I cannot go through all the details of lump sum, but you will see in the following slides where additional information is available. So the basic principle is that we have a design lump sum in a way to keep the approach of actual cost grants as much as possible. So we have the same templates, we follow the same evaluation criteria, we have exactly the same payment scheme. And I would like to highlight that it includes a pre-financing, which is done in exactly the same way as pre-financing is paid in any other grants. And we also use the same technical reporting template, although with a focus on the work packages that have been completed. Then the lump sum is divided in more lump sum shares, 1 share per each work package and beneficiary. And that allows in the end for a simpler financial reporting where all you have to do is declare which work package has been completed. And according to the pre-agreed scheme that you see at the bottom of this slide, which will essentially become the financial annex in the grant agreement of a lump sum grant, we will pay the shares of those work packages that have been completed and accepted as such at the end of the reporting period. Next slide, please. When it comes to writing a lump sum proposal, again, many things work in the very same way as they work in a standard grant. So we use the very same application form. You present your objectives and methodology in the same way. And of course, you must cover the activities to be implemented in each work package. Then what is different is that you have to provide a detailed budget table with cost estimations. And that detailed budget table is the basis for defining, justifying, and agreeing the lump sum. This budget table is in the form of an Excel file that you will download from the online submission system. And I would like to stress that you need to use the file that is available in the submission system, not any other version that might be available from any other sources. So you have to fill this and submit it as annex to part B of the application form. Next slide, please. Here a few more words on this detailed budget table. So it goes without saying that what you need to provide are cost estimations for each cost category, for each beneficiary, and for the each work package that the beneficiary is involved in. And the cost categories are exactly the same as in actual cost grants. So you will have personal costs, subcontracting costs, purchase costs, other direct costs, and so on. And I stress again that what you need to provide are cost estimations, so an approximation of your actual costs, which will not be as accurate as they would be when you report actual cost. So we expect from you to provide the best estimations that you have at the time of writing your proposal. They need to be in line with the eligibility rules. So any cost item that would be eligible in a standard grant is also eligible in your lump sum grant. Then they must be in line with your usual practices. And that's also the key point for the assessment. They must be reasonable and non-excessive. And this is what we are going to check afterwards. And of course, they must be in line with the proposed activities and necessary to support them. I would like to highlight here that if you expect to have higher costs, you should provide a justification in the proposal. And the best place to do it is in the Any Comments tab of this Excel file. And now coming back to the cost estimation. So based on this, the Excel file is generating automatically what we call the breakdown of the lump sum shares per work package and per participant, where you have the overall lump sum, which is a maximum grant amount, and the lump sum shares corresponding to each beneficiary for every work package they are involved in. And for more details on how to fill in this detailed budget table, I would like to refer you to the Funding and Tenders portal, and also, very importantly, to the instructions that are part of the Excel sheet. So the very first sheet of this Excel file contains detailed instructions on how to use it and how to complete it. Next slide, please. And another aspect that you should pay attention to when designing your lump sum proposal is the distribution of work packages. So, as said before, the work plan, objectives, methodologies, all of that works in the same way as in actual cost proposals. But in lump sums, you have one additional possibility, and this is the splitting of work packages if you deem it necessary. The aim of that is to optimize cash flow, because in a lump sum grant, you will be paid for the work packages that you have completed. And this has a consequence already at the moment of writing the proposal. So a work package that lasts for the entire duration of the grant can only be paid at the end of that grant. On the other hand, a work package that is finished at the end of reporting period 1, let's say, can be paid at the end of reporting period 1, provided it's completed by then. So you may split work packages, but you need to watch out that the result of splitting work packages does not lead to an unworkable or an inefficient work plan. So we instruct our experts that splitting work packages is possible in lump sum proposals, and that they should accept it if it still makes sense, but that at the same time, they need to make sure that the resulting work plan is still efficient and functional, such that you do not have a large multitude of very small work packages. So we don't want to see a single activity or a single task as work package. Next slide, please. And here I would like to show you one example of what this splitting could look like. So in the upper case, you see a 4-year project divided into 3 reporting periods and a single work package for management. Very often this work package for project management lasts for the entire duration of the project, and in this case, it will only be paid in a lump sum grant at the end of the grant, so after 4 years. Now, if you consider necessary that you are paid for the management work that you do before the end of the grant, you are perfectly allowed to split that work package, for example, in as many reporting periods as they are. So in this case, you see in the lower panel, the result after splitting this single work package into 3 separate work packages. So you can see work package 1, management, 2 and 3, so 1 for each reporting period. And in this way, the management work can be paid at the end of each reporting period. But again, I would like to stress that this is only necessary and recommended if you need to optimize the cash flow. But if you plan a project that lasts up to 3 years, the pre-financing is usually quite generous, so it's around 80%. So there is perhaps no need to optimize the cash flow. And in that case, I would really carefully consider if you need to use that option. But that's a possibility that you have in lump sum proposals. Next slide, please. And now the next step after you submitted your proposal is the evaluation. And again, most of that works in the standard way. So proposals are evaluated by independent experts against the same evaluation criteria. So excellence, impact, and implementation. The additional evaluation is, of course, for the lump sum budget, and this will take place under the implementation criterion. And then, as I have mentioned before, experts will mainly assess that the proposed cost estimations are reasonable and non-excessive, and whether they will allow to complete the activities as described in the proposal. So also in their assessment, one tool that experts will use to assess personal costs is a benchmark of average personal costs from grants signed in Horizon Europe. Now, it can happen that experts find that some of these costs are overestimated or not in line with the activities. And in this case, we ask them to make concrete recommendations to change the budget that was suggested, and you will find enough information in your evaluation summary report to be able to make those changes during the grant preparation phase. And I would like to stress that if budget corrections are necessary, this is not going to penalize the project. It is not going to decrease its chance of being selected for funding. So a few corrections like that could be perfectly accepted, and we will just make a small adjustment to the lump sum. But otherwise, the chance of the project to be funded is not affected at all. The only exception is, of course, if the budget is really flawed, if it doesn't really make sense, it's completely inadequate. So in that case, you would not only get recommendations, but you would also have a decreased score, which will, of course, decrease the likelihood of your proposal to be selected. I would like to mention here that the big majority of lump sum proposals do not have a budget cut, but a minority has indeed. And this shows us that the system is working. So in other words, many projects go through without having any cuts because they make reasonable and acceptable proposals for the lump sum cost. And a few do get corrections, but even in those cases, they are not large cuts. Next slide, please. And here I would like to provide you with an overview of the resources available on lump sum page. So we have created one dedicated lump sum page on the funding and tenders portal where we put all the guidance and all the supporting material for lump sum proposal and grants. You can also watch all the events that we had. There is some background information, and the most important is that you can find all the guiding documents. You can also get access to the lump sum dashboard, and this is the place to go if you're looking for information, also for future events. And I can already announce that the next webinar on lump sums will take place in February next year. And next slide, please. And here we recently published video tutorials for experts, applicants, and beneficiaries. So anybody can benefit from these simple and short videos. They're really meant to help experts understand in a short moment how lump sum funding is working and what they have to do. But since the principles are the same for everybody, you can watch these videos. And especially if you're new to lump sum funding, this will really help to understand better how it works. The first two videos are out already. So the one on overview of lump sum funding and on the detailed budget table. And we are now preparing a third video on the personal cost dashboard and how this should be used. And you find also here the link to the YouTube channel of View Science and Innovation where you can watch this. Next slide, please. And here I come to the end of the presentation. So about the improvement that we did, I can mention the higher page limit for lump sum proposals, which was also mentioned by Christiana before. Then we released an improved Excel tool for the Excel file. It's more user-friendly. And we also published these two videos with instructions for experts on how to evaluate lump sum proposals. Then, generally speaking, we continue to monitor all our lump sum grants because it's still a relatively new feature, and we will make adjustments if we see that this is necessary. And on this, we are currently preparing a follow-up study to the 2021 assessment. So we had some surveys going on, and now we are analyzing the results. And as a last point, so we had a stepwise phasing of lump sums in Horizon Europe, and in the first 2 years of the program, lump sums accounted only for 2% of the program. And starting with 2023, we have the first significant wave of lump sums with more than 200 topics using lump sum funding for both 2023 and 2024. And there might be a possible further increase from 2025, but nothing has been decided yet. And with this, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you so much, Christiana, for these presentations. I propose now to start the question and answer session. We do have some questions. And the first one is for Infratech national nodes of RI are eligible as research infrastructures, or it is mandatory to involve the headquarters of the research infrastructures. I think the mentioning of Christiana was linked to the ERICs because we did have these issues in the previous calls, and it's very important to ensure the commitment of the ERICs in the proposals. Therefore, we request to have the headquarters of ERIC, and then any other participants in the ERIC can be in the proposal, but it should be also the headquarters. This was the mentioning of Christiana. Then the second question is taxonomy for infra calls. Choice of descriptors, will they impact the evaluation procedure? Christiana, you want to take it?
Yes, sure. They won't impact the evaluation, but they will support us in identifying the proper evaluators with the necessary expertise are linked to the proposal. So I think this is the big support that the taxonomy brings. I don't know, Laura, if you want to add anything else linked to this question.
Yes, it's clear that the evaluation procedure will be the same as before, so is no impact on that. However, indeed, this will offer big support for choosing the right experts with a closer expertise to your proposal. And it's also helping us afterwards to classify the projects funded in research infrastructures for different other purposes, and will be a great help for the proposal as well for us. Then the next question is linked to the lump sum. In the lump sum system, there will be no advance funding by the EC. EC will pay only upon work packages conclusions, and how long after? Andrea, you can take this one, and I also can complete on the procedure in infra, please.
Sure. So I'd like to stress again that the payment scheme is the same as for all the other grants. So you will have a pre-financing, which you'll receive at the beginning of the project. You will have intermediary payments, if any, so there can be one or more, and you will have the payment of the balance. So it really works in the same way. And indeed, it's true that we will pay upon the completion of work packages, which will happen after the end of a reporting period or at the final payment. It depends also on the number of reporting periods that your grant will have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. And this I can complete. So to calm regarding this lump sum, so we're gonna pay the pre-financing in infrastructures. We are normally using for 36-48 months projects 2 reporting periods. Andrea was talking about the reporting periods and how to split the work packages. So in principle, we go with 2 reporting periods for 36 months, 48 months projects, and 1 reporting period for projects less than 24 or 24 months. And the pre-financing in general, it's 80%. And then the work packages for the first reporting period, of course, if they are fulfilled, we're gonna pay up to 90%. It's always the same procedure for payment. It's up to 90% of the funds with the first reporting period. So you will not be suffering at all with the lump sum funding. This is a very important message to have. Especially because in general, you're going to receive at the beginning of the project 80% of the funds related to the grant agreement. But this is at the level of the grant agreement preparation, and we're going to explain more to the coordinators. My colleagues, project officers, are having conversation with the coordinators, and they are explaining more in detail the reporting periods and funding. We have another question, because I think I reply also the 80% question with the previous one, and then we have another one. Can the completion of the work packages only be reported at period report stage? Yeah, please, Andrea.
I can
Please.
answer.
Yes.
So, indeed, the completion of work packages will be reported at the end of the reporting period. And if you have an intermediary reporting period and you have not completed your work package, so you will declare it as not completed, but you still have time to complete it until the last reporting period, so until the end of the project. And it may also happen that maybe due to some technical developments or force majeure, you don't really succeed to complete the work package. You can, at the final reporting period, when you declare the work packages, you can fill in a percentage of completion of that work package, and we will assess that, and we will pay accordingly to the level of completion, so to this percentage of completion.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andrea. I don't see any other questions. I think we were clear enough. Then I'm making a small pause of 10 seconds if something else is coming. Okay, so I don't see any other question. I wanted to thank you so much for participating to this info day today. I hope it was useful for you. Christiana reminded you about the research inquiry service where you can send questions when we're going to open the call. And yeah, we are wishing you big success, to be successful in the next call. And see you in the next info day. Have a nice afternoon, all of you. Bye.
Thank you.